from the city of Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria. TechBiz is a platform by Eco Innovation Center where we seek to empower and equip startups and other players who are in the ecosystem by having people and subject matter experts and thought leaders around the business of technology come to share from their word of experience about what is needed for us to be able to excel in the business of technology. TechBiz is a monthly webinar every last Thursday and comes to you between the hours of 5 to 6 p.m. And today again is another day in which I'm excited to bring in a subject matter expert to come provide insights into some of the things that can help us achieve scalability and improve the successful outcomes of a startup endeavor, and of course provide the right mentorship and handholding for startups in our ecosystem. We've had over the years, over the last 90 episodes of this TechBiz webinar, which of course you can also find on our platform. All you have to do is go to www.ecoinnovationcenter/webinar, and you see all the previous 89 episodes of TechBiz that we have heard, and I encourage my colleagues to just drop the link again so that people can always check. You'll find that we've dealt with several topics from investment readiness to issues around patency and teamwork and things like a business model canvas, how to attract investment, and the proprietary. We've had subject matter experts on different fields come to share with us things we need to understand about running the business of technology, which is what tech is about. And today, again, we will be talking about a story I find very interesting. That's because my passion sits in between the intersection of marketing, media, and technology. And so you understand the fact that talking about the art of storytelling today sits in where I call my forte. So I'm coming from the background of social sciences, where I'm talking about marketing and talking about and media. And today we're talking about it, bringing how does it help us succeed in the business of technology. And so today we'll be talking about the art of storytelling. This art of storytelling is critical, in our opinion, to building sustainable and building sustainable and effective startup firms. And today I have a subject matter expert that will be speaking to us, and it is great to have him join us. I will take time to read his profile, and I do hope that we'll have a great session with him. So today he's a growth and partnership lead at Brand Drive, the first 100% data-driven business tool built for African businesses. Okay, where he bridges the gap between a complex entrepreneurship system in Africa and the utilization of data for business growth. He's passionate about building strategies that drive solutions to the doorsteps of the end users while utilizing technology to improve market dominance. He has worked in growth teams locally and handled over 50 global partners, helping them create an ecosystem of continuous innovation to help build long-term sustainability. He has worked with brands like the Little Hearts Muesli, the highest-selling snack brand in the UK in 2021, Save the Children, and Facet Logistics on the global campaigns to increase reach and build acquisitions across different continents. His core experience has been in logistics, fintech, telecoms, NGOs, and edutech. The secret word is knowing how to think outside the box where everyone thinks is normal and using technology to improve growth. He is a passionate storyteller and loves healthy conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, join me this evening to welcome to the platform of TechBiz, brought to you by Co-Innovation Center, Boye Esuga, the growth manager of Brand Drive, as he takes us through the art of storytelling and how this will help us succeed more in building our technological businesses. Boye, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice being here for
Thank you very
everyone
much.
on
Thank
this.
you. And for everyone who's just joined, please feel free as Boye runs through. If you have questions, you can drop it on the chat room. We know we're being streamed across different platforms, from LinkedIn to Twitter to Facebook, Zoom, across all the platforms, and even here. Should you have any question, please drop it in the chat room, and my colleagues will make sure we have it through. And so, Boye, you have the floor now, and I'll come back again later in the course of this program to take the questions and to do some more deep dive on this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, once again, good evening, everyone, and nice to be here once more. Before I share in my slide, I would like to say a few things about storytelling. Now, it's not about English. It's nothing about English. It's basically about psychology. Now, we always have issues of saying someone said something, it didn't sound like the truth, or it sounded like the truth. But basically, it's not about truth, false, it's about the thinking, right? Now, communicating with an audience starts with how well the person listens and how well the information is communicated. Basically, that's how storytelling forms. Now, I'll be sharing my slide, but as Victor said earlier, drop in questions, drop in questions for me, questions you're actually having basically around the storytelling, or let me say, branding or brand management that concerns storytelling. You can drop the questions and we'll attend to that at the end of the talk. And also, I'll be dropping a few polls, about 4 different polls at different parts of this webinar. And I will publish the results at the end. But the idea is to understand whether you're going with me and how so many people think. So before I share my slide, let me ask just one question. So I'll be sending my first poll, and hopefully I get a positive response. So okay, my first poll is up. Now, who tells the best stories? Is it the Gen Zs? Is it the millennials? Are they children, the Gen X, or older parents, grandparents? Who tells the best stories? So, in my opinion, I will actually say, I think the older parents tell the best stories, in my opinion. So, what's your opinion? Okay, so I'll be hiding this from my screen so that we could jump straight to the point. So, let's go together. At any point in time, drop a message, drop a question, and let's work together. So this will be very interactive. The idea is, when I mean very interactive, I mean very interactive, because I will not be telling a story where an audience is missing or not lost in the middle. So understanding the art of storytelling. So thank you once more, TechBiz e-learning series, and I'm once again Boye Daniel Isuga, and my passion is just for people to understand how brands get into the market, communicate with their audience, and get things done in an easy way. So, what's storytelling? Basically, communication. In simple, plain terms, communication. But why would I say communication when there is English, there's sign language, there's Chinese, there's Spanish? Now, storytelling is, as I said earlier, is more psychological than physical, or more psychological than normal language interaction. Now, storytelling makes you do different things and take different actions. It's very simple. Everybody has a question or a statement that they've actually repeated from somebody else's conversation. And it's very simple because we pick these things without actually knowing we picked it. And when the time comes, we say the same statement because we heard it from somewhere else. That's how stories actually go a long way. So first, what are the oldest stories that have ever been told? I think everybody knows about the Bible. Everybody knows about the Quran. Whether you read it or you don't read it, but you know about the Bible, you know about the Quran. There are other holy books everywhere, but those are one of the, I would say, oldest. Ancient book, history and folklore. Now we have a picture of the, I think, knock arts. We have science and evolution. We have ancient art and civilization. Now the question is, who wrote these stories? Now, some of these stories we know the authors, some of these stories we don't know the authors. Some of these stories are believable, while others are not believable. Now, the question is, should stories be believed? Should stories not be believed? Should stories entice us to actually take an action? Should stories actually make you cry? Should stories actually make you sad? So I'll be asking some questions as this whole conversation is going, and some of the questions are going to actually spark a few atoms of questioning in your memory, but let's go with that. So what are the oldest stories ever told? Now, what stories do you remember but never remember who said it, where it was said, and when they were ever told? Do you believe them all? Stories are meant to be believed and have an atom of fact, else they are not complete stories. Now, everybody sees everybody sees sci-fi movies, that's science fictions, and so many of these movies are a combination of futuristic, artistic, technology, CGI, and all that. But now, in direct terms, do we actually believe those movies? We cry. So many of us cry for movies, but do we actually believe things that actually happen in those movies? Now, it's very simple. It's very simple that we could actually have an influence in our day-to-day life because of what we see, what we read, or what we watch, or actually hear, which hearing is actually the fastest. But these are very simple things that actually influence how our daily life goes. So stories influence our ways of thinking. The day-to-day lives have been changed by our day-to-day lives have been changed by what we read, a movie, what we listen to, and the brain doesn't just stop there. Now, the brain takes actions that we don't actually expect it to take because it is the brain. Now, the brain is not going to say, because I heard this information is not valuable to me, I would not remember. It will clearly remember. That's what statements, sounds, pictures actually translate. Now, let me break a myth right here and now. Stories do not always have to have words, so many words. It must not be 350 characters. It must not be 1,000 characters. It must not be 10,000 characters. A story could be one phrase. That one phrase could go 1,000 miles. So I'll be telling you a little bit about a few phrases that have actually impacted the way we think, the way we relate to specific brands, and go a long way. But they are one phrase, one simple sentence, but go a long way. And that's simple. Stories do not need to start with once upon a time. Not necessary. So stories influence us in the way we're thinking. The brain doesn't just stop at capturing events when listening or to impactful stories. Our brains can actually cause specific thoughts, opinions, and ideas that align with the person telling the story. Now, I can give you a direct example. I have admired people in the medical line, despite knowing I would not study on the medical line, but I have always admired them. And for a short period of time, I actually considered it. Now, the question is, do I still like the field? Yes, I do. Why did I like it? Because I saw someone in the same field that was doing the same thing and was attracted to doing that. It sparks, it has a direct impact in the way you think, and it could actually mean you saying something. Now, the story doesn't actually just come from what you hear. It could be you see you seeing the way people are actually behaving in a specific organization. And in your brain tells you this organization works with perfection. Or you say this organization are creative, this organization are organized. Now, it's as simple as saying, hearing, even seeing how neat an environment is. There's a story that just flashes into your head and says, this is what this is. And every day you step into that place, something is coming and growing in your mind that says, this is how these people are. You call it a brand identity, but the story is being written in your brain, in your head every single day. So let me run. The brains of the storyteller and the story listener can actually synchronize. So this is a statement by Kristen Uri. Now, by telling a story, a person could plant ideas, thoughts, and emotion into the listener's brains. Now, I think everybody would have asked themselves this question: how are people actually brainwashed to get into some locations, some places? I don't want to mention the places, but let's say a few religious places that you might have heard that are doing very, very funny things. Now you ask yourself, how did these people get into these places? Were they brainwashed? Were they actually dragged there with a belt and a pistol or a gun? No, they were not. They were actually sold a story. And basically, that's how people are scammed. They are scammed because there's a story that is too good to be true, but believable, and everybody works with it. Now, stories can inform different actions. The actions could span from good, bad, and whatever. Somebody tells you a story and you laugh. Comedians make mad money from that, and that's impact of storytelling. I think basically people are making mad money just because they are telling stories. Sorry for the use of words, but I think I'm communicating. So next, stories can yield all results. Next, so let me give you a direct example of how storytelling was used. Now, Rob Walker is a famous journalist, and you could check him out on, I think, Google or any search engine, and just search for Rob Walker, Amazon journalist. Now, Rob Walker took a case study of 200 items that he bought off the market, 200 micro small items, not pricey, cheap items. And those 200 items, he got 200 writers, storytellers, authors, and wrote and told them to write 200 stories about this same 200 items. So now this same 200 items, he bought them for a very little amount. And an example of one of those items was this horse head. Now, this horse head looks like a piece that we might just drop on our office desk, or probably just stick it somewhere, or a child might just even bite off the nose off. But ideally, this should cost how much? In a Nigerian naira, you see maybe 200, 300, 500 naira, but even less. But how much did he buy it? Now, he bought it for $0.99 dollars. In basic CBN rate, we'll say about 500. Let's just say 500 naira. Now, he bought it at less than $1. Now, how much is that? Very minor, but there was no story attached to it. Now, a story was written on all 200 items, and you'll be very shocked on what happened. Now, after telling a story, that same item was sold for $22.95. Very simple, 22.95. Now, that's, do the maths, 22% growth, do all the math. It doesn't tally. It doesn't make sense in any dictionary. Now, let's move on. Now, the same items he bought for an average spend of $129 for 200 items. So majority of those items were less than $1. So he spent $129 buying the same items. After the stories were written on the same stories, he sold the total items for $8,000. What type of growth is that? Now, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, but in ideal terms, it's as simple as ABC, because someone said a story that mattered. Now, how can you write a story? It's very simple. It's a horse head. So why should somebody buy it for $22? Somebody does the math for me. You wouldn't want to actually buy that same horse head for $22. So why $22? Now, he made above 6,395% growth on these items. Very absurd. But will you spend that kind of money? No, but the story behind that items compels people to actually take that action. So how is it possible to be so tricked by a little story? Example, put in 5,000 naira and you make 50,000 after 1 week. At one point or the other, someone somewhere will have told you this, and you would have at some point considered it. I'm not judging. I will have considered it, so I think we might be on the same shoes on this, but it's too good to be true, but it's so believable that you will want to actually just say, okay, it's 5,000 naira. What can happen? If I lose it, I lose it. But now calculate 5,000 naira by so many people. So that's the long-term gain. But how can you be tricked by just a little story? So little, right? So the Angel's Cocktails. Now, the Angel's Cocktail sounds like something very nice that you just like a drink or something. But the Angel's Cocktail actually defines how so many things happen in life and in the way we listen and interpret stories. Now, the Angel Cocktail is both scientific and both physical, in that you could be watching a horror movie and you're crying. Now, what happens to your brain, in your mind, in your thoughts? So what happens actually makes you cry? So the Angel Cocktail is a coined word. It's not an open conversation or an open statement, but it's often used by so many storytellers to describe different parts of the human interaction to stories. So what happens when you hear stories? Now, there's a release of what we call dopamine, and this causes someone to have focus, motivation, and a better memory. So ideally, you hear a story and you'll be very highly motivated to actually listen and know more. Now, the question is, why do you want to know more? Why do you want to know more? You might just be seeing a movie and you're seeing probably season one, and okay, you're seeing episode one, and there are 20 episodes. You see episode one, and at the end of episode one, something stops. And you technically have to go to episode two, and it happens till you're on the 19th episode, and you get to the 20th episode, and we always know what happens. They drop you on a suspense on the last episode, and boom, you have to wait for season two. It happens time and time again. So dopamine causes focus, motivation, and a better memory. So how is Z-World? I think everybody watches Z-World. Let me give you a very simple, direct story. Whoever knows my family should not tell them I said this. So one fateful weekend, I decided to visit my family. And that fateful evening, I saw they were seeing a show on Z World, and it was very funny because everybody in that was in the house at that moment was seated in front of the TV. Now the question was, okay, if it was guys, I and my brother seeing watching football, it would have made more sense. But in ideal terms, they're watching Z World. Now the question is, why are they watching Z World? It is Z World. It is not football. It is not music. It's not even music. It's Z World. So why were they watching Z World? Now, Z World has an attention span that keeps people coming. You just need to see one episode, except you're a terrible person, except you're terrible with watching too much drama. Because if you're looking for drama, Z World gives you drama. So, how they're able to keep active 63.4 million active subscribers on a daily basis. Now, I'll tell you something that happened funny on that same day. The people seated in the house were actually saying stories that had not happened on the TV. So what they did was go on the internet and search for that episode and read the story that was going to happen in that episode. So it had impacted their thoughts so much that they were even going a step higher to actually know what was going to happen before they watched it. Now, that is what a perfectly scripted story does. So that's Z World. So let's have other examples. Now, Z World builds suspense. They create things we call cliffhangers. Cliffhangers are that situation where you feel that everything is about to scatter. Somebody was about to be caught, or somebody was about to fall from a building, or somebody had an accident and something. Those kind of cliffhangers that will actually make you want to actually know what happened. And at the end of the day, they just say, okay, wait for episode two. You have to actually have to wait. And it happens on different kind of shows, and it keeps on happening. Now, when telling stories, if you can actually bring people back to actually ask themselves, what happened? How is this person solving this? How is this person making this? That suspense and that hanger works hand in hand. Now, let me give you an example. You're trying to solve a problem of logistics, or let's say supply chain, right? Now, you tell somebody, I am creating the simplest way to get to point B from point A. Now, there's flood happening all around Nigeria, but you're telling the person that. Now, the person is going to ask themselves, how are you going to solve that? Because there's flood in so many parts of the country. How will you go from the north to the south in, let's say, in the to the west, let's say in 24 hours? Now, that is technically very difficult in ideal terms, but breaking it down into different small chunks means you could actually make the person believe you, irrespective of what you're saying and how you're saying it. And it could be as simple as you saying, we fly our parcels. It's a simple statement. We fly our parcels, or we fly our orders. That's all. You've made the person will trust you probably forever, because you've actually solved the problem that others are not solving with one sentence in that statement. So let's run. What happens when you hear other stories? So we have oxytocin. Oxytocin gives generosity, trust, and bond. Now, we've heard so many stories. Someone is sick, someone had an accident. So many of those sad stories come and our bodies just get the whole goosebumps and all that. And next thing you see yourself opening your bank app and all that. It happens. It happens everywhere, even without you thinking it. Someone is knocking on your glass while you're driving, crying and saying, I've not eaten all day. I've not eaten all day is, if it doesn't spark your emotion, it means you've actually heard it so much that it doesn't spark your emotions, but it's going to spark everybody's emotion. Now, it's so simple that we see the impact of storytelling on a day-to-day basis. But in ideal terms, do we actually utilize it for the right reasons? So what happens when we hear stories? We have endorphin. Endorphin is costs, trust, and bond. And we have, okay, now an impact of endorphin, right? Let me show you a video. So now on this video, it's a woman
to
who
inspire and
is
to respond.
technically overdosed with
Are you
endorphin,
speaking or listening?
right? Now, endorphin makes someone extremely excited and technically lose it. Now, she's on the top of her laughter. I'm not sure why she's laughing. So that's what endorphin actually gives. So
To inspire and to respond.
We'll go here.
okay. So now there's the angel's cocktails and the devil's cocktail. So if there's an angel, there's obviously going to be devil. There's going to actually be a devil. So what does the devil cocktail actually mean? Now, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Why do people love horror movies? Like, I think we need to actually debate this because based on my choices, I'm going to actually ban horror movies. So I'm publishing another poll. Tell me, why do people actually watch horror movies? Like it feels very it feels off to me because I don't know why I would be actually seeing a movie that's going to make me cry. But why do people see horror movies? I want to see your answers, please. So the poll is on, and simple question: why do people love horror movies? So let's run. We need to be out of here early. So the power of emotion. Now, what's the biggest emotion everybody could actually see? The biggest emotion people say is love. Now, in in pidgin, let me just use the word pidgin English. They say "namumu they love," right? Now, that statement in ideal terms means so many people get into love and forget their senses, right? But in direct terms, love does this because that's the feeling that comes with the emotion. Now, why do people like to listen to sad music? I have listened to sad music. I know my reason, but what's your reason? Now, why do people listen to sad music? Now, they feel a sense of empathy to that, and the music makes them connect with it. Now, people might want to sleep. I don't know why somebody will be seeing a movie because they want to sleep. Is the movie actually not interesting? Or do they actually try to use the movie as a way to actually just feel bored? Question. Maybe there's a time in their life when they felt a certain way and they want to feel that way. Again, music gives that, movies give that. Why do people cry at funerals? So this is the power of emotions that stories tell. Now, so many people don't cry at funerals. Once they hear a story, they start to cry. So it's so simple that you often mistake it for something else. You say my emotions is everywhere. Basically, it's stories that are actually being sold and your brain is interpreting them in different ways. So how do you want to tell your story? Now, stories could be very simple. They could be a combination of words, actions, and whatever, music, sound, and all that. But how do you want to tell your story? Now, I'm coming from the brand perspective, basically. Now, how do you want to tell your story? It's ideal and reasonable for everybody to tell stories in once upon a time. Now, once upon a time is technically how every story was started and still starts. Now, we don't say once upon a time because we don't use the exact words, but every story needs to have a start. So how many people have heard the story? For those that have, I think everybody has heard the story, either male or female. Have you heard the story of how Nigeria lost 1-99? Where the story was the ball was changing to a lion's head. I can't remember the exact story, but this is a story that travels from day one till now. And I think India has not been playing football, I think, until recently or so, but that's a story that has gone far and wide. Is it true? I don't know. Is it a lie? I don't know. Please, if you know if it is true or a lie, please drop it in the statements, in the comments, please. Thank you. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Let me give you a direct example. So now, why people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So I'm going to skip a few slides and come back to them. But before then, yes, storytelling from a brand identity. So I said earlier, if you go back in the conversation I was saying earlier, I said it's easy for businesses and individuals to actually communicate with short phrases. Now we call it taglines, we call it mission statements, we call it visions. But ideally, they're actually trying to communicate a story using taglines and vision statements and mottos. Example, Coca-Cola, refresh the world, make a difference. Now, tell me a Coca-Cola advert that doesn't appeal to your emotions. You technically might not find one. Why? Because they stick to the idea of refreshing the world and making a difference. It's simple. Think of it. Just close your eyes and think of it. What Coca-Cola advert have you seen that has not gone through the same statement? Refresh the world, make a difference. They are always trying to communicate that on every single advert, from every single commercial, branding wise and otherwise. We have Microsoft to empower every person and every organization in the planet to achieve more. Google, don't be evil. You will need to browse to see the direct interpretation of that motto. I will not define it. Google, don't be evil. Do your research and find out why they actually use that as a motto. So Amazon, Earth's most customer-centric company. Now, if you look at Amazon, Amazon likes to do everything from the perspective of the customer. And that phrase goes round. It goes round. You never see a company that translates their mission without actually telling a story. Now, a story in a brand perspective is not a one-off. You keep on writing this story on a daily basis until it actually sticks to your customer's head that this is what we stand for. This is how we're actually communicating that, and this is how we want to interpret that to the audience. Now, it's a gradual process and doesn't happen overnight. You cannot plug a story into a customer's or an audience head or into their mind frame, but you could actually communicate how you want the story to be interpreted. Now, let me jump to the last one. Okay, Adidas, impossible is nothing. Toms, every new shoe, everyone, okay, sorry, that's the typo. Everyone needs shoes, but not everyone has money to pay for shoes. Now, that's a short statement from a story. Now, if you look at the Tom story, you're going to see how the CEO went on a trip, and in the process of his trip, he saw a few children moving around on barefoot, like they had no shoes on. And he jumped and said, these children needed to wear shoes. Now, if you notice, Toms are making eco-friendly shoes and have been making that. And it's with the whole motto of giving people that actually do not have shoes to wear. So that's storytelling from a brand perspective. So let's jump back to where I was. So, okay, now the golden circle. Now, so many brands want to flog it into their customers' head about what we are doing, we are doing this, we want to make you richer, we want to make you this, we want to make you this. But the question is, people don't care about what. Now, let me give you an example. Now, the number of fintech brands, I think the last time I checked, the number of fintech brands that are registered in Nigeria was 245 or so that are publicly known. are listed in Nigeria. Between then and now, which was probably 4 months ago, we'll probably have maybe another 50 more on the market. And it happens. Now, you wake up and say, okay, I have some money, I want to set up this, I want to set up a fintech brand. And on the first few months, you are telling people, we are giving you the best solution to this, to that. Everybody has been telling the same story. So if everybody's telling the same story, how do you stand out from the rest of the people? Open question. How do you stand out? Now, everybody needs to understand why you are doing that, right? So you are making shoes for people that don't have shoes in rural areas. Why? Are you after the money? Are you after fame? Are you after building a reputation? It's as simple as asking simple questions. And those questions actually make those customers or the audience actually stay or leave. I am giving you an easy way to pay bills and airtime, and bills and subscriptions and all that. That is what. Why? What are you saving? You share the fastest way to grow your business. That's a statement. That is a why. Now, why speaks to people's emotions. I said one of the first things I said at the start of this talk, I said storytelling is more psychological than words. Now, if people can't actually interpret those words into action and feel that this statement is actually true or false, then you are not communicating. So why and how tells you the emotion behind the action. And what's basically it's a complexity. You're telling people you could make more money doing this, or you could do this, you could do this. But people actually care about the why. So many people fall for scams because they listen to the what, not the why. So let's run. So essentials of storytelling. Now, in every story, there is a character. Every story, there is a character. Just keep that in mind. There is also always a character. In the character in this story, in this virtual webinar we're having, I am the character. Now, I am the character, you are my persona. Now, who is on this call? Let's say business owners, let's say students, wherever. That's the ideal persona of people on the call. I'm not saying that's the persona, but I'm saying the audience segmentation could be students, could be business owners or whatever. But every story has a character. So without understanding who the character is, you cannot write a story. It's as simple as ABC. You can't say building a better future for people when you're actually running a school. Let's say a high school or let's say a secondary school. You cannot be saying building a better future for people. Now, people are not children. So for you to communicate to an audience, you actually need to hit the nail on the head using the story. Now, there has to be a conflict. Now, a conflict is like you saying your why. The conflict is, we're solving this, I'm solving this, and this is the person in the middle of this. It creates a relationship between the character and what you're trying to resolve. So if there's a conflict, there's a resolution. So resolution is how you solve this. Simple. I met a lady in the market, and she was stranded. She asked if I could be of help, and from the little cash I had on me, I gave her 1,000 naira. At the end of the day, I realized she was heading my way, and I gave her a lift to her destination. Now, this is a story, not a real story, but I have used the 3 essential parts of storytelling in that statement. So it's very simple. We tell stories on a daily basis, but we don't know that we're telling the stories. But applying this same formula, the same essentials in our brands and trying to communicate to an ideal audience goes a long way. So how to develop your stories? The single most important part of your story has nothing to do with the story itself, but the audience you're telling it to. You can have a great, well-crafted story, but if it doesn't line up with your audience, it won't mean a thing to your conversations. I spoke about this earlier. So the storytelling formula. So I need to break the chain for now. So now the storytelling formula comes in different ways. Different people have their formulas, but this is a formula that works for me. So you might see a formula that is available on the internet that says something else. Please, I am not lying. So I just needed to say everybody has a different formula that works for them, but this works for me perfectly well. So let's jump back to the conversation. The storytelling formula, a problem that people have which your product or service can solve. Now, the first is the problem. The second is a way for someone to easily access the product or the service, right? The last is the world in which your product or service has made the problem, the way in which your product or service has made the problem disappear. So let me give you a direct example of that, from how that formula is implemented. Now, the storytelling formula is by no means unique to telling stories for marketing purposes. So I brought in a story that is known by everybody. I think everybody that had a childhood would actually know the story. But the formula is used in movies, in advertising, and different sectors. So how many people know about Cinderella? Cinderella is technically everybody's go-to story when they want to actually talk about true love. So Cinderella lives with her wicked stepmother and stepsisters and dreams of a better life. So that's the beginning. The beginning introduces this character and the problem. Now, Cinderella is visited by her fairy godmother and meets her Prince Charming at the ball, leaving one of her glass slippers behind. That's the middle. Introduces the solution, drives the plot. Now, the plot is basically more like the suspense. Now, imagine the movie ended at that part where she actually lost her glass slippers. Everybody was actually waiting for the part 2 or the part 3, or as the movie continues. Now, the last part, Prince Charming uses the glass slippers to find Cinderella, and they live happily ever after. So it's a whole movie, but broken down into the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning introduces the character, the middle introduces the solution, and the end talks about the resolution, as I said earlier. So let's jump. Okay, I've spoken about storytelling on the perspective of brands. So I'm really running out of time. So understanding style and approach. Who defines the approach to the conversation? What if the story is a bad one? Brands tell believable lies and call it stories. Now, this is debatable, but actually true. You hear so many things that brands actually say they do and do not do. I wouldn't call names of brands, but let me give you an example of statements in our local setting where we have brands that are actually doing things with statements. Example, MTN, everywhere you go. LG, life's good. We have them on the left, right, and center. And so many of these brands have been associated with these statements they say. Now, other brands have used these same statements to actually mislead. As simple. So, storytelling. Apple is probably one of the biggest storytellers in the world, primarily because they found a way to actually make everybody feel like if you're not using an iPhone, you are not using a phone. And how did they do it? Example, you jump into an Apple unveiling event. First thing, good morning. Apple doesn't tell you the phone is 50, 100 megapixel camera. They don't tell you it's a 100 gig RAM. They don't tell you anything. They just show you images of what the camera can actually do. And your brain actually just tells you, what if I snap these pictures with XYZ friend at XYZ event with this phone? Now your brain's already telling you this phone is better than the phone I'm using, irrespective of if the phone is actually an iPhone. You actually want to buy the newer model because your brain tells you that. So they're not telling you this phone has a metallic display or a retina a Gorilla screen or all that. They're telling you what you can actually feel, interpret, and get from this device. That's Apple. And it works for time and time again. It's a psychological warfare and they are winning. So Apple, Baby Shark, I think this is remarkably one of the highest selling cartoons right now. So they have an average watch time on YouTube of 5.6 million viewers. Average watch time of 5.6 million in real time. So Baby Shark, I once had I had a cousin's daughter that she wakes up from sleep once she hears the sound from Baby Shark. So it has a direct interpretation on everybody's head from even sound without even seeing the images. So I'm running quite fast. So stories and brand growth. Now, basically, brands tell stories because they want to build trust, keep customers, and stick to their vision. Now, for brands that actually wake up on a specific day and decide they want to change their vision, so many of them are not really sure on what they've been doing, or they are tweaking their visions to make them better. Now, if you're telling the right stories, it will attract the right customers. And if you're telling the right if you're getting the right customers, it aligns with your vision. Your stories actually have to align with your vision and at the same time build trust. So if you're actually telling the right stories, trust is going to actually stick. It's actually going to be built on the customer side. So stories and connections. The story that can somehow connect with the hearts in a place where I want to go because my heart's leading my mind. So technically, I'm just that statement is saying the way you listen to something, and as long as that story actually appeals to the audience or that person, the person is actually going to go with it. If the person wants to cry, if you tell the person a story that the person that is going to lead to tears, the person will cry the cry. So ideally, that's how stories create the connections and the authenticity that comes with it. So social proof. Social proof is technically what so many people use to scam each other. So this is a statement that I think everybody with Nigerian parents would have said. If your friends jump off a bridge, would you follow them or would you join them too? So that's a very simple statement that we've all heard. But in ideal terms, not the first time you've heard that. It sounds like our parents were trying to protect us from something that will affect our entire life, and that's social proof. Now, social proof is you seeing somebody else taking an action and taking an action because you saw that. That's why so many brands post reviews. They post chats with their customers on social media. Basically, they're actually trying to compel you to take the action because somebody else has done that. So they're trying to tell the story that, okay, we are reliable. You can trust us because somebody else has trusted us. So this is there's an open void that people remember because okay, let me just jump this. The 21st century human is crazy, lazy, and busy. Hence, the need for awesome stories to be told. So we often have little words to say when we are trying to make big differences. You will never go for a pitch that you'll be given a time of 1 hour. So the ideal way to actually get people's action in the right way, in the right time, and communicate at the same time is through stories. There is no way around it. No brand will tell you, we set up this business because we want to make money. Nobody's actually going to tell you that. Ideally, the brand is going to tell you, we did this for this, not because we wanted to make money. We decided to start cleaning up a place because we wanted to help people. It's a why before is a why before the what. So we're rounding up now. Write your story and let it count. How do you want your story to be written? So at this point, okay, Mr. Victor, you're back here. So back to questioning. So I think
Great. Well, I think this was explosive, and I think in the chat room, I think people can just drop our commendations and do thumbs up and clap. I think this was quite exciting. And when you look at the art of storytelling, I think for every successful brand or anybody running an enterprise, being able to tell the story is critical. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Boye, for that. That was quite a lot to pack into just this 45, 50 minutes. And I do hope we can have a few questions. So my colleagues that are there, please feel free to check across all the platforms, and let's drop in our questions, and let's get cracking with Boye. But Boye, one of the things I would like you to also shed the light on under a minute is, there's this credibility that comes from the word of mouth. So all marketing professionals will tell you that the most credible source of advertisement is word of mouth. Okay, so word of mouth means the testimonials you get from people is more it's more believable compared to any other medium in which you're sharing your story. So just thinking in terms of storytelling and using the word of mouth channel for storytelling. Have you? What do you think in terms of credibility? Do you think that channel is a more relevant channel and brands can explore that the more, or you think the art of storytelling does not differ from channel to channel? What do you think? Because there are so many channels people used to tell their brand stories, but the question is, do you think testimonials, word of mouth, will help amplify the impact? What are your thoughts around that?
Okay. Ideally, looking at from the perspective of testimonials, reviews, and all that, it's word of mouth marketing is technically the easiest and the fastest. Why? It's simple. We're having a conversation now, and imagine I start crying. I start crying and I tell you, buy this. You will be so motivated to buy from me. But if I'm actually typing and saying, I'm crying right now, or I reply with an emoji and says, crying, or with an emoji that is actually crying, does this pour an action? But on the other side, word of mouth marketing is not scalable. Let me explain when I mean it's not scalable. Now, imagine you're trying to get 1,000 customers. You can't speak to 1,000 people. You can't speak to 1,000 people. So bringing in reviews, conversations, testimonials, using social media graphics and all that, it's a round circle. It's a whole circle of events that actually bring people back to the idea of communicating that same story. Now, the story doesn't change. The story is the same story, but the medium at which you're communicating that story is what matters. So you never hear brands say, we changed our story because we're going on LinkedIn. Story is one, it's just a different medium. So
great. And I think this emphasizes the importance of consistency, and I think on the subsequent date we'll bring you again into helping people understand the real process of crafting their stories, maybe in a more interactive session, because I think the art of storytelling is critical. And like you said, it's stories that must touch the heart. It's talking about the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And I think that resonates more with people. It touches the very essence, and I think it speaks to purpose. Okay, the purpose for existence, the reason to believe, and I think that's quite instructive. And thank you everyone for, of course, across all the platforms who have joined us today, and thank you very much for all the contributions that we're having. We're still, if you have questions, we're still trying to take questions from the chat room. But again, this is TechBiz. If you're just joining us, it's brought to you from the stables of Eco Innovation Center at 50 Awolowo Road. Eco Innovation Center focuses on pre-acceleration and acceleration of companies and startups, companies who have innovation at the heart of their operations, and of course startups. And our mission is to help them achieve commercialization and provide the required handholding for these organizations. And TechBiz happens to be one of the platforms in which we try to do that by bringing subject matter experts who come to talk to us about different subject topics, and it's not just on these. I mean, subsequently you can still reach out to them. They are always on our platforms, and if you want to join our other platforms where you can carry this conversation further in a more closed, knitted environment where you can have interactions, all you have to do is join our our Tech Nation. That's on the Telegram, the TechBiz forum on Telegram, which is called Tech Nation. And I think my colleagues will drop the link in the chat room now. I think, is that the link? They will drop the link that will help you take you to the Telegram page. So if you click the link, it takes you to the Telegram page, and myself and so many other subject experts who have graced this platform over the years, over the last 100 episodes, will be able to help you with your questions and provide a safe environment where you can express yourself, air yourself, and can provide the right mentorship and handholding. And today we'll be talking about the art of storytelling, which is critical for organizations and business, especially startups who need to go beyond technology to understand the nuances of how to write and how to run a business. Okay. And I think for this recording, of course, and all other recordings, you can also find them. My colleagues also dropped the link at www.ecoicenter.com/webinar. You'll find the 90 episodes, all they're recorded and they're on demand. And you can always download, go over it, and drop your questions in the Telegram page. And I think Boye, has done an exciting work around this complex topic of storytelling and authenticity. And I think there's some quick takeouts. It's about touching the heart. It's about staying true to it. It's about being consistent about platforms and not just telling people the what. It's about also telling them, getting them to understand the why. Thank you very much for being a part of TechBiz today. I remain your host, the founder of Eco Innovation Center. My name is Victor Gbenga Folabi, and I do look forward to hosting you again in a month's time, the last Thursday in the month of November, where we'll be getting closer to the art of technology, Lagos, which we're having the fourth edition talking about talent acceleration and a connected Lagos. Talent acceleration and a connected Lagos. This year we've got development partners like UNDP who are partnering strongly to bring about an improved experience to what it is. And we think out of this there will be some major platforms created that can help improve our talent acceleration and equip our people. So I think you should also keep a date, December 8th and 9th in Landmark. If you've not registered, please jump on the Eco Innovation Center website and you register for Art of Technology Lagos. It's happening on the 8th and 9th of December in Landmark in Lagos. And the topic for that is talent acceleration and a connected Lagos. And our topic for the TechBiz webinar on the last Thursday of November will also be showing more light around the concept and conversations, concept of talent acceleration, talent framework, and the conversations around talent retention and talent pipeline management. I think that will be critical, and I look forward to also hosting every one of us on that day. I mean, if you have questions, you've not been able to put them in here, you're driving or something, still feel free to drop it. If you just go through use the link to join our Telegram page, go through, just feel free to drop your questions there, and Boye and myself will always be able to continue to engage with you after now. But we must say a big thank you to Boye. Subject matter expert is a growth expert, and thanks for bringing in value to us this evening. Thanks for sharing from your wealth of experience, and I'm sure all the people that have been online have benefited one thing or the other. Thanks for helping us understand the importance of art of storytelling, understanding the art of it, and understanding the purpose of storytelling and what value it brings. Clearly, understanding how to tell the story improves the brand equity, improves the value perception, and improves the growth of our businesses, and this cannot be taken for granted. Thank you very much, Boye Sugar. Thank you for everyone that has been with me today on TechBiz, and I do look forward to having you next week. Do have a very wonderful weekend starting from tomorrow, and keep safe. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye then. Thank you.